Um,
Ready? Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Contra Costa Tail Spinners. So lovely to be here again this month. And I just want to share a little thing that happened to me over the last week. I went to Ashland for the Shakespeare Festival. And one of the plays I saw was about August Wilson. And it was about his life. And in it, he just told one story after the other, story about his friends, story about location. And he just was bathing in stories. And it made me know just how important our stories are. And if we hone them really well, you can go on and be a star in Ashland. So good evening, wonderful to see you. I will now turn the meeting over to Liz, who will host all of our wonderful tellers that are giving their gifts to us tonight. Thank you.
Okay, well, we've got a packed evening tonight of many wonderful tellers. So let's get started. We're going to have an appetizer teller, and then our featured teller, Tim, and then we'll go down the list. So Ann Riley, who's been here many a time, is going to start us out. So at our June Contra Costa Tail Spinners virtual swap. So let's all mute ourselves and except for Anne, and Marnie, our wonderful tech host, will be spotlighting Anne and all the other tellers. Okay, take it away, Anne.
So this old man had slept the night at the edge of the village. He wakened at the usual time just before sunrise, as a warm wind blew over the land, gathering up faint aromas that sweetened the air. Oh, there was a small garden and a tiny blossom there, and oh, the pungent whisper memory of a dying waterhole. He sat up, looked at the east where the sky was just beginning to brighten, and began his morning devotions. And he started his day with prayer, as he had done almost every day of his life. And it was during these prayers that the sound of rapid footfalls behind him greeted his ears, and then a voice behind him. Master, master, oh, where is it? Well, the old man turned slowly, and then he looked behind himself, and then he saw a man, a young man, a very young man, dressed in rags. But he was excited. His chest was heaving up and down. His eyes were tense. The old man smiled at the young man and said, what is it that you ask of me? The young man bowed slightly and seemed to calm himself a bit and said, well, I had a dream last night, and in the dream I came to the edge of the village and I met a holy man, and now here you are. And in my dream, that holy man gave me a precious jewel. Ah, replied the old man, as he reached down and rummaged in the grass, and he finally found a ruby the size of a fist. Oh, you must mean this. Oh, I found it somewhere. I don't remember where. Oh, but you can have it. I have no use for it. And he put the ruby into the hand of the young man. The young man just stared at it. He took the ruby. He could not believe his good fortune. He smiled and he started to walk home. And as he walked home, he kept caressing it. And he kept holding it in front of him as if it was guiding himself home. He would hold it up to the light so that his face would be awash of this wonderful reddish glow. I couldn't take his eyes off it. He finally reached his small cottage. He opened the door and he put it on his table, pulled up his one chair and sat down to stare at it and gaze at it and caress it. Oh, he caressed it. Oh, and he would roll it over. And he did this for many hours. That night, the young man had trouble sleeping. But the next morning, he was on his way traveling to the fields with the ruby safely in his pocket when he came upon the old man again. It is said that the young peasant approached the holy man, pulled the ruby out of his pocket, and gave it back. I do not want this. I want what you know that made it so easy for you to give it away. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. And look at all the hands.
Thank
That
you.
was beautiful. What a wonderful wisdom story to start us off. Thank you. Anne came to us from El Cerrito, very nearby, and our featured teller today, Tim Araneta, is also nearby. You know, we are, quote, in Orinda, in Contra Costa County, and Tim is in Berkeley. And Tim, we figured out this is his fourth time at least as one of our featured tellers. We just have to keep asking him back, whether to the library or now even since we've been on Zoom. This is his second time. And what can I say? I'm just going to tell you that one of Tim's most recent accomplishments is that he is the 2021 Folktale Fight champion. And that was in Pittsburgh. They had a, yeah, isn't that awesome? So Tim brings such a unique take on folk and fairy tales. As he says, they're too good to leave to the kids. And whatever you tell, we love to hear, Tim. So welcome back and tell us a story.
Thank you, Liz. So nice to be back. So nice to be here with all of you. And one of the things I've been enjoying exploring are the folktales of Central Asia. And many of you know Dana Sherry, who for a long time was running storytelling programs at the Silk Road House in Berkeley. And during the pandemic, one of the cultures I've been exploring are the folktales of the Uyghurs, who live in the Xinjiang Autonomous Province in the northwest part of China along the Silk Road. And like all the countries along the Silk Road, they have a rich history and folklore going back hundreds and thousands of years. So I actually have two stories for you. One's really short, and it starts like this. There was once a rich man who was known for being stingy. He didn't want to let any money escape his hands if he could help it. Now, this rich man had a shepherd who worked for him and worked for him year after year after year until after 20 years of service looking after the rich man's sheep, he had had enough. The shepherd made up his mind, I'm going to retire. And so he went to the rich man and he said, my lord, I have had enough. I've enjoyed working for you, but I need to be out on my own. So please give me my pay for 20 years of service so that I can retire. Well, the rich man started to calculate, well, how much earnings that would be, 20 years, that's a lot of money. Oh, he didn't like the number he came up with. Oh, but the shepherd ate my food, the food that I've grown. So yes, I can deduct that number. Those tattered clothes he's wearing. Yes, that's an expense. Take that out of his pay. Well, my friend, said the rich man, I appreciate all your hard work, but your expenses have outweighed the value you've given me. I think you cannot retire for another 2 years. Then we'll be even, and you can go about and start life on your own. Well, the shepherd did not like hearing that. He was incensed, and he decided that he would take his case to the Qadi, the judge. And so he marched down to the Qadi, and he explained his situation to the Qadi's scribe. And the scribe said, yes, I see, but I think you're going to have to be very clever indeed to win this case. So here's what you must do. Whenever the judge asks you a question, only say this, bah, right? Only speak in the language of sheep. And then I will advocate for you. And that way you will get all 20 years of your pay. Well, the shepherd agreed this would be a fine idea. But there's one condition, said the scribe. When you get your 20 years of pay, you must give me half. Well, the shepherd didn't like the sound of that, but what else could he do? He trusted the scribe and said, very well, I will do what you say. One more thing. In order to get before the judge, you must go on strike. Do not come to work, and tell your master that you will not work until you get your 20 years of pay. And so it was decided. The next day, the shepherd told his master that he would not work. The master didn't believe him, but the shepherd was on strike for 1 day, for 2 days, for 3 days, and at last, the rich man, furious, hauled his shepherd before the Qadi. This man will not work. He says he won't work because I owe him 20 years' pay, but this is simply not true. Well, the Qadi looked at the shepherd. Oh, this is a serious accusation. What have you got to say for yourself? Bah, said the shepherd. I'm sorry? Bah. I'm sorry, sir. Let me start over. What is your name? Bah. And are you this man's shepherd? Bah. Try as he might, the Qadi could not get the shepherd, to say anything except bah. And at this, the rich man was incensed. Your Honor, he just spoke to me the other day. He is clearly pretending. He is making this all up. Is this true? Said the Qadi. Can you really speak just like any other man here? Bah. And at this, the scribe spoke up. Your Honor, clearly, this shepherd has served this man for 20 years out in the hills, tending the flocks with no one to talk to but the sheep. We should commend him for learning a new language. But alas, he has not had time. Who could he talk to out there except the sheep? He has forgotten our mother tongue. And the judge thought this was reasonable. I can't believe you believing this. What? The rich man was furious. But the Qadi stroked his beard and said, here is my judgment. You should not take advantage of a poor fool like this who has lost the ability to speak. Do not be so stingy. I order you to pay him 20 years' salary right now. And as the scribe collected all those coins and put them in a bag for the shepherd, he could not help but smile. And at last, as the shepherd walked away from there, a rich man with a sack full of coins, the scribe called out to him, Shepherd, do not forget our agreement. You owe me half of what is in that bag. And the shepherd looked at the scribe and said, bah, bah. So once upon a time, there was a village in which there lived a very rich man, a bey. And he was so rich, he was so wealthy, he lorded it over all the villagers, and he was quite cruel to them. Now, in this village lived Hassan, and Hassan was walking by the rich man's house one day when the watchdog attacked him. Yes, the watchdog of the bey ran out and started to bite Hassan. And Hassan shook his leg and beat off the dog, and the dog got even angrier. And there was a skirmish and a tussle, and I am sorry to say, my friends, that the dog died in the fight. And the rich bey, well, he was furious. And he called Hassan before the Qadi. Now, The rich man and the Qadi were close friends. And the rich man said to the Qadi, "We must teach this peasant a lesson." And the Qadi stroked his beard and said, "Yes, we must." And so he said to Hassan, "Do you deny killing this man's dog?" "I do not, sir, but it was self-defense. The dog attacked me for no reason." "Ah, but one life has been lost and perhaps another should be taken. I could sentence you to death, but I am a fair and merciful man. So instead, here is my sentence. You, Hassan, must be the watchdog for the Bey." Well, Hassan didn't like this one bit, but what could he do? The alternative would be much worse. So that night he reported to the Bey's house, and he spent all night walking up and down, back and forth, keeping watch. And he did that all night, and the next night, and the next, and the next. Now, it just so happens that a robber came to town intending to steal the horse of the Bey. And as he crept into the Bey's yard to approach the stable, he froze because he saw, staring at him, Hassan. And Hassan looked at that robber and said in as loud a voice as he could, "Bow, wow, 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 ruff, 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 yap, 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 grr." The robber stared at Hassan. But once again, all Hassan said was, "Ruff, ruff, ruff, bow, wow, 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 yap, 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 grr." And with each step that the robber took toward the horse's stable, Hassan merely stood his ground and cried out in a loud voice, "Ruff, ruff, ruff, bow, wow, wow, yap, 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 grr." Well, the robber walked in, took the horse by the reins, climbed up on the saddle, and left. In the house, the Bey was tossing and turning. Oh, that idiot Hassan, making all that noise. What a racket. And in the morning, he came out and he said, "What is the meaning of this, Hassan? Why were you making all that noise last night?" "Well, I was warning you about the robber." "What are you talking about?" "The robber who took your horse." And the Bey ran to his stable and looked inside. Indeed, his horse was gone. "I can't believe this. Why did you not sound the alarm?" "Well, did you not hear your dog barking all night?" "Well, I did, but Why didn't you stop the man and have him arrested?" "Tell me, sir, did your last watchdog stop and arrest any prowlers on the property?" "Well, of course not. A watchdog can't arrest people." "It is as you say." Well, the rich man, the Bey, he couldn't argue with the logic, but he was furious. He went to his friend, the Qadi. "Can we teach this Hassan another lesson?" Well, the Qadi said, "Yes, of course we can. Bring him before me." And so once again, there was another trial. And the Qadi said, "Now, here's my sentence, Hassan. You must now serve as this man's horse." Well, the very next day, Hassan reported to the stable and stood there. And the Bey came out and said, "Hassan, I wish to visit a friend in the next village across that valley. So hitch yourself to the cart and we will be off." And Hassan did not move. "Did you not hear me?" "I heard you very well, sir." "Well, why will you not hitch yourself to the cart?" "Tell me, sir, did your last horse hitch itself to its cart?" "No, of course not. A horse can't hitch itself." "It is as you say." And so the Bey, the rich Bey, had to put the harness on Hassan, then attach it to the cart. He climbed up and they were off. And down the road they went towards the next village across the valley. Now, Hassan was as good as his word. He had promised to pull the cart as if he were a horse. But he was not as strong as a horse, and it was very slow going. And as the day crept on, they were making very little progress. For indeed, the rich Bey, as a rich man, was large and heavy, and the cart was difficult to move. And as I said, Hassan was not a horse. Soon enough, As they reached the bottom of the valley, the sun was so low it began to dip below the mountains. And Hassan said to the Bey, "Excuse me, my lord, I do not think it advisable we travel in this valley at night, for it is known that there are wild animals here, wolves and bears." "Well, go faster then," said the Bey. "I am going as fast as I can." "Well, what do you suggest we do?" "I suggest we run for our lives." And so the rich Bey climbed down off the cart and began to follow Hassan as they ran as fast as they could down the road towards the next village, running and run and huffing and puffing. And the rich Bey was not a running sort of man. He was not used to running, and he said, "Hassan, stop. I must take a rest. I cannot run this fast." And by now the sun had gone down, and just ahead on the road was a large tree stump leaning into the road, but it was completely in shadow. And Hassan looked at it, and he looked back at the Bey and said, "My lord, do not move. If I am not mistaken, there is an enormous bear right ahead of us on the road." "An enormous bear. What shall we do? What shall we do?" "Well, we must frighten it off. We need a dog to bark. Only the barking of a dog will keep a bear or any wolves nearby from coming too close." "Very good," said the rich Bey. "Hassan, please start barking." "Tell me, sir, your last horse, was it known to bark?" "Well, of course not. A horse can't bark." "It is as you say." "Yeah, what are we going to do?" "Well, sir, I suggest you try barking." And so the rich Bey started at the top of his lungs to say, "Bow, wow, wow, rough, 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 yap, 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 grr." And again, "Bow, wow, wow, rough, 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 yap, 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 grr," all night long. And repeating it over and over was a melody to Hassan's ears, who drifted off to sleep there in the valley, content in the knowledge that that tree stump would do him no harm. In the morning, as the sky lightened, and the Bey realized that that was a tree stump and not a bear, he thought about what he had done. And he said to Hassan, "I am willing to make a deal with you. How about you are released from being my horse, and you are released from being my dog. And I promise I will never bother you again, nor anyone else in the village, on one condition: that you never tell anyone this story about what has happened here tonight." They say Hassan agreed. But then again, I'm telling you this story. The story of Hassan and the rich Bey. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Wonderful stories, and thank you for introducing us to the stories of this region. Fantastic. All right, our next two. So we've had two of our local treasures, and now we have two of our treasures who've been coming to our swap from far away. So our next two storytellers will be Renu Narayan, who's coming to us from Chennai, India, and then Bev Schwartz, who's coming to us from Troy, New York. So, and they're up very early or very late. So we thank them especially. So Renu, please tell us a story.
Thank you, Liz. It's always a pleasure to be here to listen to stories and to share my stories too. I hope my voice is clear. I plan to tell you today a story from the Hindu mythology. It's called Good King Shivi, and I found it in a book that I bought for my children many years ago. In Hindu mythology, there are three lokas, or the three levels. That is the Deva Loka, where the gods reside, the Bhu Loka, where the humans reside, and the Patala, where the monsters or the Asuras reside. There are no Asuras in this story, but I just wanted to give you a brief background so that you will understand what is happening in the story. A long time ago, Lord Indra, the king of the Devas, was sitting on his throne and he was very disgruntled. He turned to his wife Indrani and said, "These humans, they always want something or the other. They keep asking and I keep giving. But I really wonder if there's even one human being who's as generous as the gods." And Indrani, who was sitting by him on his throne, she said, "Indra, haven't you heard of King Shivi? He's the most generous king on earth. Whatever people ask of him, he always gives it away without a second thought. Maybe, but I wonder whether he's as generous as he claims to be. I wish I could find out," he said. Meanwhile, way down below on earth, King Shivi was sitting on his throne and he was deep in thought. "I give away land, I give away gold, I give away so many things to the people who come to me asking for alms. But is that real generosity? I wish I could do more. Maybe if somebody one day wants a part of my body, I shall give it away." Now, the gods can read human thoughts. And when Indra heard this, he was delighted. "We shall find out how generous you are, Shivi," he said. And whoosh, he turned himself into an old man and went down to earth. As usual, there was a long queue in front of the palace, and King Shivi stood there listening to the people and giving away whatever they wanted. The queue moved on, and the old man, bent over with age, shuffled his way along. And soon he was standing in front of the king. The king bowed respectfully towards him and said, "What is it you want, old man?" "I don't want land or gold. I am blind. You have 2 eyes, I have none. Give me one of your eyes." When King Shivi heard this, he was so happy. Finally he could give away a part of his body. "Why only one eye, old man? I shall give you both," he said. "Mantri, minister, call the royal doctor immediately." "Maharaj, Maharaj, no, you cannot give away your eyes, Maharaj. Give this old man some coins and send him away. You are our ruler. What will we do without you?" "I have made up my mind. Summon the royal doctor immediately," said King Shivi. The royal doctor came along, crying tears of grief. He knew he could say nothing to change the king's mind. The king looked at him and said, "Please remove my eyes and place them into the old man's sockets." And so the doctor did that. He very gently removed the king's eyes and placed them into the sockets of the old man. Now the king stood blind, and he asked the old man, "Old man, can you see now?" Yes, I can see I can see the beautiful sky and the wonderful flowers. Thank you, Maharaj." And he went away. The king was now blind. He said to his ministers, "I am blind and of no use to the kingdom. I expect you to continue to rule the way I did. I am going to spend the rest of my life by the river." He got onto his chariot and rode out of the palace before anyone could say a word. People lined up on the streets, some of them wailing, some of them beating their heads, and some of them absolutely shocked to see their beloved king leave the kingdom. The king went down to the river, sat down in meditation, and sent the chariot back to the palace. Meanwhile, in Devaloka, Indra was smiling with happiness and joy. Indrani, however, was furious. "How dare you, Indra? How dare you take away King Shivi's eyes? Wasn't that a test of his generosity? Go right back and return his eyesight to him, she ordered. I shall do that, Indrani. Don't worry. And whoosh, he appeared in front of King Shivi. King Shivi, I am Lord Indra. I have come here to grant you a boon. Oh Lord, please ensure that my people will live in happiness and bliss forever. Indra was taken aback. He had expected King Shivi to ask for his eyesight. I can give you your eyesight back, he said. Oh, it was you who took away my eyes. But what's the use of giving if I want it back? Indra was absolutely stunned. You are indeed a generous man, he said. I shall give you back your eyesight, but not those of humans. I shall bless you with the eyes of gods. He placed his hands gently on King Shivi's eyes. And when Shivi opened his eyes, they were luminous, the sight of the gods. And whoosh, Indra was gone. King Shivi went back to his palace. People were overjoyed to see the king back, and he continued to rule wisely, kindly, and generously. Thank you.
Thank you, Renu. Wow, I never heard that story before. A beautiful story of generosity. We need to hear as many of those as we can. Before I asked Bev to tell her story, I need to apologize to all the tellers that we had some last minute changes in the order and so I just want to tell everyone that Bev will be next, and after Bev we have Camille Miller, and after Camille, Manjiri Gogate. I don't know if I'm saying your last name right, Manjiri, but for the first time telling here. And then we have Diamond, and after Diamond will be Pete and Vicky, both of them from Sonoma, from the Sonoma swap, who have joined recently started coming to our swap. So that's the order. So, and then Sally will take us out. So, Bev, again, from upstate New York all the way, tell us a story.
I just have to say, it's so great to see all of you again. You don't know how happy I am to be back telling stories. The phone rang. It was 6 o'clock in the morning. Hello? Okay, sure. Hung up. I had been teaching third grade, but I was substitute principal for all the elementary schools in my district. I got my sneakers on, tied them, made sure I had loose clothes because I knew I would be moving all day in this school. Troy had inner city schools, and this one had the reputation of you're busy every second of the day. So I got there early, checked around the school, checked the security cameras and everything else. And the kids came in, everything was going great. They got their breakfast, they went in, nobody was calling me. Oh, maybe this will be a slow day. Because the last time I was there was a kindergartner who took a big butcher knife from home and put it in his backpack. And he hated this one kid who was bullying him. And he decided he was going to teach him a lesson. And he put it in his backpack, and at lunch, he took it out and he said, I'm going to hurt you, and started chasing another kindergartner. So as I was called and I entered the room of the cafeteria, he ran by me and I was able to grab him by the t-shirt, and he dropped the knife and we got him before he hurt anybody. So I was ready for anything this time. Then I got a phone call. Miss Schwartz, you're wanted in Miss, let's say Lucy's room. She has a problem. She wants you there immediately. So off I went, fast as I could in my sneakers. And I go, and as I open the door, I hear her yelling at this kid who's taller than me and her. He looked like he had probably stayed back 1 or 2 years. And he was the tallest kid in the room and he didn't even fit in. And she's yelling at him. You never bring paper. You never bring pencil. I'm tired of giving you all the stuff you need or the kids loaning it. And you never even bring anything and pay back all the kids with paper and pencils that they've given you. I've had it with you. I want you out of here. And she looks at me. Did you hear that? And I said, and I motioned to him. You want to take a walk? He goes, he was just being humiliated and he was embarrassed. You could tell. And I closed the door and we walked down the hallway in silence. And I said, have you had breakfast yet? He said, no. I said, why not? Well, my mother wakes up late. And when she wakes me up, then she gets me up. And we don't have any food in the house. So, usually my breakfast I eat here and lunch. Ah, I thought he doesn't have dinner either, probably before he comes to school. So he's probably pretty hungry. So I said, let's get you some breakfast before we talk. So we went into the cafeteria and I said to the ladies, listen, his mother doesn't wake him up late. That's why he's not here. And I know you're not supposed to feed any of the kids if they miss breakfast. But can we have 2 breakfasts that are left over? Sure, said the ladies. I said, and in the future, if he comes in late, can you do me a favor? Can you be kind enough to give him a breakfast? Because it's not his fault. It's his mother's fault. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Sometimes you have to understand the situation. So we bring the breakfast into the office and he sits there in front of the desk and he's hungry and he eats every single piece of crumb or anything that was left. And I said, okay, now I have to ask you a question. Why do you not bring supplies to school, pencil or paper? And he sat there and he kind of looked down and he said, well, my mom doesn't have a lot of food and she doesn't have a lot of money to buy other things. And she does the best she can. She doesn't have an alarm clock, so I get up when she wakes me up and we just don't have it. My mother just tells me to get everything in school that I need from the teacher. Oh, so now I know the real story. I don't think the teacher knows what's happening in your home. I think that's part of the problem. Let's solve the problem. How? He said. My mother's not going to get any more money and she's not going to give me any more stuff. Stop. Let's take those 2 brown bags for breakfast and that are empty now and come with me. Let's write your name on those bags. And then when I went up into the secretary's desk and I said, can I have a key to the supply room here? She gives me the key and we walked in. And there I took a whole bunch of pencils, erasers, I gave him a pair of scissors and I gave him a pad of paper and we put them in the bags. And I said to the secretary, I need your help. Now, the boy had no idea what I was doing. He probably thought I was going to give this to him to take to his classroom. Well, could you keep these bags in your bottom drawer? And when he comes to school, every day you can give him 1 pencil and a couple papers and maybe an eraser and maybe a pair of scissors if he thinks he needs it. And he can go into the classroom and have supplies. And the teacher will think that he's coming to school with this. That's a great idea, Bev, she said. He goes, if I'm not here, just see the principal and she'll also know about it when she comes back. So we put it in the back drawer, but we did take a pencil and a couple of pieces of paper and handed it to him. I said, do you think you can handle this way? Absolutely. A big smile on his face. Oh, thank you. I said, come with me. So we walked back to the room and I said, this is what I want you to do. I'm going to open the door quietly and as quiet as a mouse, you go into your desk and just put your stuff in your desk. Don't draw attention and pretend you're fine and just have a great day. Well, and I walked away. Now, it wasn't my responsibility at that point because I was only a substitute principal. And she was a young girl. She probably had no idea what some of these kids from the inner city's life was like at home. but eventually she would learn through other people mentoring her and telling her. But it wasn't my responsibility. So I later quietly, I called the principal and told her what happened. And she goes, I'll handle it very nicely for you, Bev. I said, thank you. And at the end of the day, I walked at the door and I knocked on the door and I said, hi, just saying if you had a nice day. She said, oh, yes, thank you. I had a wonderful day. And the kid put his thumb up for me. So I knew he did too. And the next time I visited the school, he made sure before going to this classroom, he stopped and said hello as he was picking up his pencil. How to care and be kinder to people and kids in the world makes a big difference in their life and how it affects you as well as them. Thank you.
Thank you, Bev. Thank you so much. Can everybody hear me? Yeah, okay. That was beautiful. Another uplifting story.
Thank you.
We're really being uplifted by all the stories, and now we have more stories to come. So our next storyteller is Camille Miller, and she hasn't been able to be with us for a few months, and we're just so glad to have you back. From wherever you are, that I love your background. That's refreshing too. So Camille has a story that she told at the SAC genre event, which I missed. So I'm really glad I get to hear it tonight, and you will be glad too. Take it away, Camille.
He smiled at me from across the street. I smiled back. He was tall, dressed in uniform, and had a solid build. As he started toward me, I could feel my heart beating faster and faster. Now, standing in front of me, he peered into my eyes. His strong hand grasped mine, and he said, "Here's your mail." I confess, finding love has always been hard for me. When I was a little girl, love came easy. Philip and Camille sitting in a tree, Kissing. Now that I'm older, finding a tree to kiss in is a lot harder. Friday night, and I'm mindlessly watching TV. Click, click, and then I see it. Let us help you find true love. That's it. Online dating. I eagerly enroll and I find a smorgasbord of men. There were businessmen, lawmen, firemen, ironmen, and even boogeymen. I scroll and I see Derek, 6'2" with dazzling eyes. He was looking for love and adventure. Click. We decided to meet at a restaurant. Derek, he was short, very short, which she lied about on his profile. And he was dressed in a red shirt and yellow pants. He looked like a couple of ketchup and mustard packets. All night, he bombarded me with financial questions. So, where do you work? What kind of car do you drive? How many rooms in your house? At the end of the night, he confidently declared, "You're the gal for me." I quickly quipped that I'm not a hot dog and I need more than ketchup and mustard in my life. Back to the drawing board. I scroll and I see Brian. Broad shoulders, rugged beard. He was looking for friendship that might lead to lasting relationship. Click. We decided to meet for coffee. Now, Brian, he was tall, very tall, and he looked just like his profile. I was hopeful. He would wink at me between sips of coffee and play footsie with me under the table. And Brian, he spent the entire time talking about his mother. On the third date, he confessed that he, his brother, and his 6 kids live with his mother. No, he wasn't paying rent. Yes, she still made his lunch and did his laundry and took care of his 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 kids while he was at work. But Brian, I felt like the side chick, and I am not a polygamist. That's okay. Plenty of fish in the sea. I scroll and I scroll and I see Ken. He was an average guy, but something about him made my heart leap like the current gas prices. He was a widower looking for companionship. Click. We met at a restaurant called Lazy Dog. That should have been my first clue. He ordered the crab legs, opened it up, sucked out the meat, and then proceeded to all night. I was serenaded by the sound of suck. To me, it was like on a chalkboard. I couldn't get out of there soon enough. Weeks later, he called me and invited me to his gym for a swim in the indoor pool. I figured as long as it didn't involve crab legs, I should be okay. I'm sitting on the edge of the pool, and Ken comes strutting in. He was as pale as my face during the mammogram. Then, like a dolphin, he dove into the pool, kicking his feet up like a fin. And that's when I saw it. His feet were as black as midnight in summer. He came up out of the pool and sat beside me. My eyes couldn't help but look at his feet in the water and think of all the dirt he was dispersing into the pool. If Brother Man wasn't washing his feet, then what else wasn't he washing? I yanked my feet up out of the water. Ken, I don't feel like swimming today. Like a schoolboy, he splashed me and took off swimming. On his second lap, he broke a hole through the water, put his finger on the side of his nose, then like a professional, shot mucus out of his nostril. I gagged and I gagged it. And I tried to keep my food down because food is expensive, you know. I told Ken, I have some errands to run. I have to go. I ran out of there like a patient out of an insane asylum. And I haven't been back to indoor pools or Ken since. Well, recently, my bad luck ran out. Of all places, I was at the grocery store. The attraction was as strong as peas to pods, babies to bottles, kisses to lips. As I stared, I thought I heard the words, and I did. Now, I'm not normally that kind of a girl, but passion embraced me like a dog in mating season. We went back to my place, rushed through the door, and stumbled onto the couch. With lusty hands, I unwrapped the delicacy before me. Anticipation, heavy breathing. I nibbled on one side and I nibbled on the other side until the chocolate bar was gone. Back to you.
Ah, wonderful, wonderful. What a journey. Ah, we need to learn to laugh at the things that don't always feel laughable in the moment. You sure showed us how, Camille. Thank you. That was, I loved all your similes and metaphors and stuff. It was really terrific. All right. Moving right along. We have so many wonderful stories tonight. Our next storyteller is Manjiri. And is it Gogate? Am I saying it correct?
Yeah, it's correct.
All right. And this is Manjiri's first time to tell a story at our swap. So we're just always special welcome to people who come and tell for the first time, it's really special. So tell us a story.
Thank you, Liz, for the platform, and I'm really excited to be here. This is a personal story, and it's very close to my heart. And here goes. I was feeling very lonely and sad. It was an empty nest. My daughter had got married recently, and I missed the times when I would pick up the phone and tell her, let's go see a movie. And she would say, yeah, after work, we can definitely go. And her colleagues would tease her that, oh, it's first day, first show, movie buffs. My son had left to study at an Ivy League college in Ithaca, Cornell. My parents had passed away recently, and I lost my husband, and my mother-in-law passed away too. And then my granddaughter was born, my daughter's daughter. My son completed his studies and went to work at San Francisco. Those were happier times. I decided to visit him in San Francisco. And though he was doing very well at work, he really missed the home food, home cooking. And when I went there, I decided to visit the local grocery Indian store. The gentleman there welcomed me. Benji, sister, here are the spice racks, and on the back side are the lentils. And we have a deep freezer here with the green peas, cottage cheese, paneer, and Shrikhand, which is a sweet yogurt with a little cardamom and saffron, which was Mihir's favorite. So I decided to buy it all and told him to send it home, which he readily agreed. And that evening, Mihir came home, and as he entered the house, he said, oh, I can smell some good home food. And he really enjoyed his meal. He said it was comfort food. I was really happy about that. Then later I decided to see San Francisco, knowing it was a very beautiful city. I visited the parks and of course the Golden Gate Bridge. And then I visited some museums. I went to the Asian Art Museum, and there was a yoga exhibition there. And seeing that, oh, it felt absolutely at home because I had been practicing yoga for the last so many decades. And it had been one of my favorite hobbies. And seeing that, I saw that there were people embracing each other's cultures, and that really felt good. Then I started volunteering at the Asian Art Museum. It's always good to give back to society when society gives you so much. And I made a lot of friends there too. And one friend there said she liked the Maharashtrian sabudana khichdi, which is a tapioca dish made with a little ground peanuts and some fried potatoes cut up in small pieces and with a little cilantro and green chilies. And I was happy to make it for her and called her home. Then I visited her home, and she made a South Indian delicacy, rasam vada, which is lentil dumplings in tomato soup. And I really enjoyed that. And we were reminiscing about our time in India. She was also nostalgic about her childhood, and I too was remembering my daughter and granddaughter. Soon it was time to go home. And this time when I went home, I felt that I was looking at the world with new eyes, and it felt a very friendly and small place. And I was in a happier place now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Manjiri.
Thank you,
I also
Liz.
volunteer at the Asian Art Museum and so does Anne Riley, who's here, and of course Rupa. And I don't know who, if I'm maybe there's someone else on the call. So, wow, I felt like I could taste the flavor, smell the flavors of the story. And
Oh, thank you.
the only problem is now I'm a little hungry. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. You know, yeah, yeah, lovely story. All right, we have 2 more stories left. And the next one is going to be from Pete Moffat. Pete joined us for the first time last month to tell a story. He's been at the Do Tell Swap in Santa Rosa, and he's back again to tell us another. Welcome, Pete.
Thank you. Pete Moffat is the name I was called for my whole life. Pete was always the name. If I ever heard anyone addressing to me other than Pete, I knew they were not people that really knew me very well. But the facts of the matter are is that my real given name on my birth certificate is Robert Parker Moffat Jr. That was my real name. And I was named after my father, Robert Parker Moffat. He was senior and I was junior. And my parents kind of wondered, well, why Pete when you got that other name, Robert Parker Moffat Jr.? And the answer is, Mom, Bob and Mary Moffat did not want me to be named after my father, like Bobby or Bubba or Junior, or, any of those names. They said, we don't want to do that. So we're just going to call you a Pete. They never told me why. I probably should have checked that out, but it's been Pete my whole life. So that all worked just fine. And it was about almost 30 years later when the next big moment was that my wife, Pat, and I got a big surprise one morning as we headed downtown in Houston to Memorial Hospital. We were on the way to be delivered our first child. Now, we were prepared for this, but we did not expect it to come 5 weeks early. That was a surprise. So we go running downhill, as you can imagine. We check into the hospital. All the people do a great job to get us up into the delivery room. And after a while longer, I'm standing there and Pat's doing a wonderful job. And not too much longer, I'm holding Parker Moffat III in my hand. There's my son, Parker Moffat III. But then the doctor looked up from the other end of the operation at that time and said, sorry, there's another one in here. And we were totally quiet and shocked. We had absolutely no indication that there was going to be twins. There was no absolute whatsoever at all. And so in another minute or two, I'm standing there holding my second son. We have twin boys. And you can just imagine what that goes through your hand in that, and all the happiness and joy and concern, and your mind goes crazy, like, oh, all the things you need to get around the house. And then you think about, what does this mean for college, and all the things you have to do for your kids. So there's all these things going through your head. But in the midst of all of this, in my thought process, it was surprising that I thought back to an important part of my childhood when I was younger. I would had a happy child life, except for one point where my mother always compared me to my older cousin Chuck. He was always better grades, better schools, better athletics, everything about it. My mother always compared me to Chuck, and why can't you be good as Chuck? And why can't you? So I just knew and felt that for all of those years. That was an awful, awful situation. I do not like that feeling. And if I ever have another kid, that'll never happen again. And well, all of a sudden, I'm standing here with 2 children in my hand. And Pat and I, we had one name. There's a girl name, but I don't know what it was. We had one boy's name. And so obviously we have to get to work on that really quickly. The hospital called both the boys A and B. And for 3 days, they were literally tagged like that. But we did some great work with our best friends, and we came up with a name. It was Thomas, which is named after our best friend. Grant is my wife's father, Moffat, Thomas Grant Moffat. So we all thought about that. That sounded good. Let's lock that in. And so that was great. We just all went on with that, and that was the end of it. We never talked about it anymore. Then it's about 10 years later now, and we decide, Pat and I decided to tell our boys that it was time for them to tell them that I was adopted. The boys had never ever heard a word about adoption. Maybe they had some whatever, but we decided that at this age we need to tell them now. I was adopted. And I wanted them to know that I never had any interest whatsoever, no interest in my adoption, no reasons. If somebody were to walk up, another couple to walk up and say, hey, we're, some claim on us, I would say, no way. Bob and Mary, they are our parents, get out of here. And so that was the end of that. We didn't think about it any longer. And so things are going along good. The boys are growing up, and then there's about another 10 years, and my father passed away. He was living down in Alveston. So me and my younger sister and younger brother, we all moved down to Alveston for a week or so to help take care of all the affairs and moving out the apartment, all that sort of thing. And Chris and I were moving these big furniture and everything out into the truck. And my sister, Missy, was looking at all the paperwork. Thank goodness she's taking care of all that. She found a box, a memorabilia box. And didn't know it was there, but Missy started saying, oh, here's your award for catching a big fish, and here's your dad's award for catching a big fish, and Boy Scouts, and all these things that started to be, these kind of cute things. Yeah, that's all great memories. But then Missy got really, really quiet. Really quiet. And she said, hey, Pete, I found something we didn't know existed. We have your biological birth certificate in this box. We know your born name. Now, do you really want to know that? And I said, well, I never thought about about adoption and didn't mean anything. So I said, oh yeah, I guess it doesn't matter. But boy, was I ever totally surprised when Missy read to me that my biological name was Thomas Wayne West. And so it turns out that Tom and Parker, both of my sons, are directly from me. It seemed to be an amazing random that all could happen. It felt like something that made us all really positive and happy. And it was almost like it's like the universe, looked at all of these things and put all these pieces to come together in such a way that produced such joy for all of our family. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pete. Another uplifting story. And I always love a name story.
Yeah.
And we all have name stories, nickname stories, last name stories, first name stories. And sometimes we don't know where our name, something about our names come from. And so it's rich for all of us to be reminded of that and to encourage all of us to tell those stories, learn those stories. And yeah, thank you so much.
Thank
All
you.
right, we have also from the Santa Rosa Do Tell Swap, who's now able to just sit in her living room and come and tell us a story, is Vicki Ness. And we never know what kind of story you're going to tell, Vicki, but it's always unique. So unique take or create it, whatever. So we're really looking forward to it. And welcome, Vicki.
Thank you. I am going to tell a retelling of Aesop's fable of the grasshopper and the ant. And I'm going to tell this again in a free festival, storytelling festival this weekend called the Insect Story Fest. And I'm putting the link in the chat. It's Artists Standing Strong Together, and it's Saturday, it's free, and there are 5 insect storytellers and the Royal Entomology Society speaking as well. So, long time ago, spring awoke with a start and pushed winter's dreary dreams away and sent up shoots of green light. Young grass pushed through the wet earth and wove very slowly to the sound of a grasshopper who was playing on his violin. The grass kept growing. The beautiful sounds of his jig filled the air and called the entire earth to dance. And so the wildflowers poked up and elbowed the grass aside, their big bellflowers swaying back and forth, the lupin and the cow parsley shimmying in time. Huge white cumulus clouds like Spanish galleon ships set sail across a blue sky, looking for the sound of that fabulous, joyous music. And in the sea of waving grass down the hills, some of the grass shimmered, shifted, shimmered. It's because at the roots were the ants, and they were very busy because winter was coming. Winter is coming, and they had to get lots of money so that they could take care of everything for winter. And they had all their little plans. Buy low, sell high. Oh, very good idea. Real estate, real estate. This is mine. That's yours. That's mine. I'm going to make money. And others said, Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, rich, rich. I'm going to be rich. And so they became rich. Oh, yes, they did. Summer invited the entire world into a gracious season of warmth and abundant food. And the little grasshopper sat on a rock in the cool shade and played a waltz. And the waltz swayed and moved so gently till it rose like an arabesque and settled and swayed again. And the very water of the stream answered back with sparkling sounds. And the willow bent down and trailed her leafy fingers in the water. And the birds answered with tweets and whistles. And the whole creation sang along with the wonderful waltz of the grasshopper. Even the briar berries pushed out all their little petals of flowers and grew bigger, and they began to blush with the sound of the music, and then they grew red, and then they grew a glossy ebony, and the grasshopper played on. But in the leaf litter, shiver, shake, twitch, 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 it was the ants. Got lots of money, got to spend it, got to spend it. So they got their Peloton, they got their they got their Amazon Prime, they got the club card. Spend, spend, spend. Well, every so often, one or two of them would peel off from the group and go poke at the grasshopper and say, why aren't you doing something? Shouldn't you be doing something? Winter's coming. And the grasshopper would very graciously put down his violin and look at them and say, I am doing something. And then he'd go back to playing. And the ants would look at each other, and they'd go back to their online shopping. Autumn crept in like a dark, cold, death-grip shadow under rocks in the darkness of the forest. The ground grew hard and the sky grew lead gray, and the ice slowly advanced. And the grasshopper sat on the warmest place he could, and he played an adagio so rich and sensuous and sorrowful that even the rocks cried and their hearts broke open. and tears of dew appeared in the morning, and the ice, slick and cruel, slid forward until the first rays of dawn and the sound of the adagio, and even that would stay its hand and leave filigree of ice to melt on the grass. And the grasshopper played on, and the leaves on the trees put on their beautiful colors, the most beautiful colors they could come up with, the rust and the tobacco browns and the bronze. And listening to the music, they gathered the courage to let go. And let go they did, each and every one, and they swirled their own private death dance, swinging and swirling and circling until they landed gently at the feet of the grasshopper, reflecting back all of summer's bright colors to that leaden sky. And the grasshopper played on. But the ants, they had their McMansions, and they had filled it with all kinds of stuff. Oh boy, we got everything for winter. We've got everything we want. Except they had everything, but something was missing. How can you have everything and still have something missing? How is that possible? Well, they didn't know. So they got crabby. You're an idiot. I've always hated you. Don't do that. You're a fool. And they said terrible things to each other until they wouldn't speak to each other at all. And in the silence, they heard it. The music that had been going through every season that they hadn't actually listened to. It was the adagio now, creeping under the door and wrapping them like a warm shawl, and it caused their hearts to bloom. And they went outside and looked for the grasshopper. Grasshopper! And there he was, playing his adagio and shivering violently in the cold. And the ants looked at each other with their brand new hearts and they said, oh, he's cold. Oh, no bug should suffer like that. That's not right. No bug should suffer. And so they did what ants are really good at doing. They got together and they talked and they figured things out and they all disappeared. And some of them went to their houses and they took apart their 12th guest bedroom that they were never going to use anyway, and took all the construction stuff down to a little hollow that would be private and secure in the winter. And then others went into their storerooms and came out with pallets of extra food. And still others looked at things like their mid-century modern sofas and realized they didn't really need 4 of them. Maybe they could get rid of the dusty rose one. And so that went off. And pretty soon they had furnished a house perfectly for the grasshopper. And they stood at the doorway and they said, grasshopper, grasshopper, please come, grasshopper. And he did come. And he was so delighted that he could have a warm place to stay, and deeply, deeply grateful that he had food to fill his stomach all winter long. Now the ants were delighted that they had a gift to give from their abundance, but they were even more grateful that they had found what they were missing. And now they had it, music to fill their souls all winter long. And so the grasshopper played on.
Ah, that was so wonderful. So wonderful. Music for the soul, stories for the soul. Sally, turning it over to you. Thank you, Vicki.
Okay, can you hear me? Thank you so very, very much to all the tellers. What a wonderful, wonderful evening. I just feel so filled with these fabulous stories that took us all over, that were some so personal and others so magical and mysterious. Thank you very much. Thank you, all of you, for keeping the Tale Spinners going month after month. Just makes me so pleased. I just feel full of joy tonight. Thank you very, very much. And I'm going to say goodnight and wish you all the best and well, and keep your stories going. And we will see you next month. Is there anybody that has an announcement or anything they need to make? All
I
right.
want to say thank you
Sally.
to all the listeners too. I know, Sally, you always remind me to say that.
Oh, yes,
you to
yes,
all
absolutely.
Our
Absolutely.
tellers, but also those listening ears brought forth those stories, right?
Absolutely.
Tellers, I know tellers, you feel that. We feel it.
Yeah.
All right, announcements.
I want to announce as Rossmore Storytelling Club. I know, if you don't live here, it's not that easy, but I want to invite anybody, and Sally is a regular, and Liz, you're going to come and visit me sooner or later, and anybody in the group or want to come and visit. It's the fourth Tuesday of the month, which in this case, it's next Tuesday, this coming Tuesday. It's at 1:30, and it's in our main Creekside building, but contact me.
Not
And
Zoom?
what's that?
It's not on Zoom.
No, I'm afraid it's in person. Yeah, I'm sorry. I really would love to have you come and tell.
I would love it. If you ever get Zoom, invite me.
That's a good point, but we're trying to get over the Zoomy things here, but I'm fine with that. All right, I'm going to put my email here, and Jeannie was going to come one of these times, and Sue's, you guys know Sue, she comes. I'm going to have Ben Tucker this week as my special guest, and the week after will be the month after will be Eleanor Clement as our special guest. So I'd love to, I'm sitting here taking notes about who might make a good special guest. So here's my email, take it down, and you're interested to come, and I'll set it up for you.
Thank you, Claire.
Looks like Jane's got her hand up.
I do. I have
Hi, Jane.
I'm very excited, and I wanted to share this and thank Orinda Storytellers so much. So much. You brought my friend Myra and I together after, I don't know, what was it, a 40-year absence, around a story that I told. And then stories that I was telling you about my dad and my pony cart, my friend Myra said, this needs to be a book. Well, Myra and I have been working on that. And today or yesterday, I got a copy of my book. And
Oh, how nice. Great.
And it's just,
Beautiful.
that's one of the wheels from the pony cart.
Oh, lovely.
How did you publish it?
Oh, it's Shutterfly, so
Oh,
it's
okay.
not a real, it's a
But
real
still,
book.
it's a book. It's
It's
something to
real,
show off.
real,
Wow.
real.
Mazel tov.
Thank you. So
It's a limited edition, but it's
That's
real.
Hey, if you put it on Amazon, it might might like it, and then you'll have to publish it. You'll get orders. Seriously, if they like it and you put orders in, then you can, say that orders available at contact, and you never know who's going to really pick it up, and it might fly.
That's true. So
And it doesn't cost you anything to do that. It's just when you have to make the copies and you consider the mailing and a little price for yourself.
well, one of my major points here is that Orinda Tale Spinners has been a place where our family storytelling that we've always done, and friends, you gave me a place to tell stories. I used to hold my third graders captive audience. So many years.
I taught third grade too.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I invite mine also.
We're so proud of you. You're like one of our
Yeah.
children. You've gone on and made a book, for goodness sake. Good for you.
Did you say that was Shutterfly?
yes. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
That's a great idea.
Congratulations.
Wonderful, wonderful.
You can
When
have.
we're back in person, you must bring bring a
yes.
copy to let everybody see.
I
Yeah.
really, I really enjoy that. It was really fun to work with Myra and just, having SAC sponsor us and having you guys appreciate stories when I told them really just boosted me along. And so now I'm mailing them out to my dozens of cousins and it's really,
That's a great story in itself.
Yeah. We'll put you on one day. How the swap made me an author.
I'm pretending I'm a famous author.
Very good.
That's about as far as it's gonna go.
All right, you all. We're gonna say goodnight.
I had an
See you
announcement.
next week.
Oh, there's another.
Oh, another announcement.